Great, thank you very much. I just thought of something that Ben mentioned, talking about the individual. And we actually teach this at our police academy in Mesa, Arizona. I'm a retired Mesa PD officer. And we tell our recruits, when you are protecting the rights of an individual, even one who has been accused of a crime, you are only protecting your own rights. That's what we're doing, folks. We're pleased now to hear from Stewart Rhodes, Oath Keepers President and Founder. Mr. Rhodes.
Today's Constitution Day, and a few years ago I wrote an essay about Constitution Day, and I asked a question, is this a day of mourning or a day of celebration for their constitutions and a relentless assault? And one other writer online actually said the Constitution's dead. It's been shot in the face by a shotgun. It's DRT, dead right there. And he's got a point. This government is wildly outside of the Constitution, and so is every level of government, all the way down to your local town council. Mr. DeWeese has already pointed out, and others across the country have pointed out before, they're all outside the bounds. But when asked that question, I say no. The Constitution still lives because it still lives inside of our hearts. And all of those of us who have sworn the oath to support and defend the Constitution, whether in military service like I did, or whether the sheriffs, like the good sheriffs who are here today, or chiefs of police. We all took an oath to support and defend, and as long as we still draw breath, the Republic still lives inside of us. So that's my answer to that. But we do need to understand reality and face the reality that we are in an uphill fight, and it is so wildly outside the bounds that at any time we could have another Lexington Green. It could happen any day. And in the aftermath of Bundy Ranch, I read some analysis by so-called intelligence centers in the counterterrorism intelligence centers in Nevada was one of them, and other places across the country that apparently don't get it. Here's why you had veterans from all over the country jumping in their trucks as individuals, not just Oath Keepers and other groups. We were there too. But there were plenty of guys who all on their own just look and saw what's going on and grabbed their rifle, grabbed their go bag, and jumped in their truck. And why? They told us why when we were there. It was the presence of military snipers, trained special forces snipers that they knew were on the other side, pointing their sniper rifles at a ranching family. That was the number one reason why they rolled out. It was because our government was treating that ranching family with less respect than they would treat someone in Iraq or Afghanistan, where they're still trying to win the hearts and minds. The attitude of the government in this case was, we don't care about winning your hearts and minds, we're going to show you who's boss. Here comes the boot on the back of your neck, and it's wearing a special forces foot inside that boot. That's why. And on our side, and here's the message I have for the federal law enforcement that were there, you need to understand how close you were. It was not going to be a Waco where it's going to be you, well-trained professionals, against untrained men, women, children in a church. It was going to be you against other well-trained American fighters. There was one MARSOC Marine who was there who rolled up. No one even knew he was going to show up. He shows up. He just got out of the Marine Corps. 300 kills in Afghanistan behind a .338 Lapua sniper rifle. And he ran into a young Marine who'd driven down by himself from Oregon, who happened to have a .338 Lapua. The MARSOC Marine couldn't afford to own a privately owned .338 Lapua sniper rifle. But when the other Marine veteran found out who this guy was, he said, "This is yours. You take it. Give me your M4." They swapped rifles. So now you had a MARSOC Marine who knew what he was doing on the other side of the scope, looking at those Special Forces veteran snipers. It was going to be sheepdog on sheepdog bloodbath that day. And the why? Because those other oath takers had forgotten their oath. And they had agreed to take the money and go serve as the muscle to treat their own people like an occupied enemy nation. And it's a mirror image. You're going to get what you give. We're going to give you back what you give us. If you deploy the military against us, you will see on the other side guys just like you looking right back at you.
Hear, hear.
And it's the same deal up in New York with the SAFE Act. Same message there to the police of New York. It's like, look guys, it's not the responsibility of the people to bend the knee and submit to an unconstitutional edict from Governor Cuomo and the legislature. You can't tell them, all these oath-sworn veterans, many of whom left brothers on the battlefield, you cannot tell them that in order to avoid violence here at home, you must submit. Bend the knee to the king. Bend the knee and bend your children's knees too. It's not their responsibility to avoid violence, to avoid sheepdog on sheepdog in New York. The responsibility is on the police, the sheriffs, and the deputies of New York to do what's right and refuse to obey those unlawful orders. That is the responsibility. That's the check. That's the safety valve. It's not in submission. It's in devotion and duty of you, the men who are going to be called to act against us, to do what's right and refuse. As long as you refuse, they can't do it without you. You know that. So I had the privilege of riding over here in a car with Sheriff Crepinelli and his wife and kids. Also here is Denny Pyman, an awesome sheriff from Kentucky, who came to Bundy Ranch with us. And that's another good point, as Mr. Pratt was saying earlier. You had Brad Rogers there. He came on our behalf. You had Sheriff Pyman from Kentucky. We also had Jeff Christopher from Delaware show up also. So if we're a bunch of radical, anti-government, crazy cop killers, why were there police officers standing right there with us? It's because we're all in this together. It doesn't matter whether you're a cop or you're a soldier or what your status is. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and it's what we will always defend together. If we defend it together, we can avoid bloodshed here at home. But if we allow our police to militarize and turn into an occupying army, or we allow our military to be used here at home domestically against the people, there will be another fight. And there should be. The founders would roll over in their graves and look at us and think, you're going to submit without a fight? Of course there'll be a fight. Just as there was a fight in their day. Just as there was a fight on Iwo Jima and Normandy. We will fight if we have to. But if you do what's right, if you understand your oath, and if you simply respect and obey the Constitution, we don't have to go there. But don't fool yourselves. Don't listen to Southern Poverty Law Center and other nonsense that, oh, we can't tell why they went down there. There's all kinds of crazy crackpot theories. No. It was snipers. It was militarized contractors looking like they just came out of Afghanistan or Iraq. And it was the violation, plain violation of the First Amendment, the big reason why guys showed up. Those ridiculous First Amendment areas where they're told you can have free speech inside this box. Of course, everyone ignored them. All the cowboys there, to their credit, ignored that nonsense. They said, we're not going to comply with that. But that ticked off a lot of veterans. Because they said, what am I fighting for? What did I go and fight for? And one more message for the feds out there. I want you to take a good hard look at who showed up. I want you to think about, number one, how many Marines showed up. And I was Army Airborne, and I'm very proud of that, but I'll tell you what, you got to give credit where credit's due. The Marines showed up en masse. There were more than any other veteran group out there. It was Marine Corps at Bundy Ranch. And don't think, you feds out there, don't think that the guys who just got out are much different than the guys who are still in. They're of the same mindset. And this is the politicians and your would-be dictators in Washington, D.C., this is what they're worried about. And they should be worried about it. They have to worry that if they go too hard, they drop the hammer too blatantly on Americans like at Bundy Ranch, that the Marine Corps will flip on them. And I think it would. And same goes for the close to the tip of the spear in the Army, Army Airborne, your Special Forces, your Navy SEALs, all those groups out there. The more hardcore they are as warriors, the more likely they are to look at something like that and say, that's it, I'm done, and join the resistance. And so that's why they are careful about what they do. It's not out of charity or concern for your lives that they don't drop the hammer. As we found out later on, they were actually considering a military strike at Bundy Ranch. Can you believe that? Washington Times reported it. They were considering using military force at Bundy Ranch. Thankfully, they did not. Because if they had, that would have kicked off a civil war in this country. It would have. We don't want that. But the way to avoid it, once again, is for those who are in the positions of enforcement, whether federal, state, whether they are in the military, they must refuse to be the muscle for idiots like Cuomo or Obama or Holder who don't understand warfare. Do not open the door on U.S. soil to sheepdog on sheepdog violence. Don't do it. Thank you.